It's 3 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling, your phone is face down beside you because you promised yourself you wouldn't check it. Your mind is doing that thing again, replaying a conversation from 4 years ago. You feel broken, you feel like something is wrong with you. But here's the strange part. For most of human history, waking up in the middle of the night wasn't a malfunction. It was the plan. Your ancestors expected this moment. They built their entire night around it. Historian Roger E. Kirsch spent years digging through diaries, court records, and medical texts from before the Industrial Age. He found something odd. Thousands of ordinary references to a first sleep and a second sleep, not as a disorder, as a normal part of the night. People would sleep for a few hours after dark, wake up naturally in the middle of the night, stay awake for an hour or two, and then fall back asleep until morning. What did they do in that gap? They didn't scroll. They didn't stress about being unproductive. They talked quietly with a partner. They tended a fire. They thought. Some prayed. Some had sex. Some simply lay in the dark and let their minds wander, half awake, half dreaming, in a state some researchers now call a liminal state, a doorway between sleeping and waking where strange ideas and vivid images tend to surface. Sound familiar? It should. Your brain still knows how to do this. It just doesn't get the chance anymore. Before electric light, night was long. In winter, especially at higher latitudes, darkness could stretch for 14 or 15 hours. No human being, no matter how tired, sleeps that long in one unbroken stretch. So the body split it in two. First sleep, awake in window. Second sleep. This wasn't insomnia. This was biology working exactly as designed. Then came something that changed everything. Artificial light, gas lamps first, then electric bulbs. Suddenly, night could be pushed back. People stayed up later, compressed their sleep into a single block, and the waking window in the middle disappeared. Within a few generations, the split night vanished almost entirely from cultural memory. By the time your grandparents were children, nobody talked about a first sleep or a second sleep anymore. It had simply been forgotten. Erased by a light bulb, but your brain didn't get the memo. Millions of years of evolution don't rewrite themselves in a century. So when you wake up at 3 a.m. today and panic sets in and you assume something is medically wrong, you're actually experiencing a pattern that is, in a strange way, more natural than the 8-hour block you've been told you're supposed to hit every single night. Here's where it gets even stranger. Neuroscientist Jerome Siegel wanted to know what sleep actually looked like before industrialization, not in old documents, but in living human groups who still slept the way humans slept for nearly all of history. He studied 3 hunter-gatherer societies, the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, the Tsimane of Bolivia, groups with no electricity, no clocks, no screens. What he found challenged almost everything modern sleep culture assumes. These groups didn't sleep in one tidy block either. They didn't obsess over getting exactly 8 hours. They woke during the night sometimes, they napped occasionally, and critically, they didn't fall asleep the moment the sun went down. They stayed active for hours after dusk, gathered around fire talking until temperature, not darkness, seemed to be the real trigger for sleep. Temperature, not light, not a bedtime alarm, cooling temperature. Your ancestors' bodies were tuned to a signal that had nothing to do with a clock and everything to do with the natural drop in temperature that happens after sunset. Your core body temperature still falls in the evening today. It's still one of the strongest natural sleep signals your body produces. Most people just drown it out with heated homes, bright screens, and schedules that ignore it completely. So why did any of this evolve this way in the first place? Consider what a first sleep and a waking window would have meant 50,000 years ago. A small group sleeping in the open or in a shelter, surrounded by real threats. Predators? Rival groups? Fire that needed tending so it didn't die out and leave everyone in freezing darkness. A society that slept in one deep, unbroken block all night was a society that could be caught completely unaware. A society that woke naturally in the middle of the night, checked the fire, listened for danger, and then returned to sleep was safer. This is sometimes called the sentinel hypothesis in sleep research, the idea that segmented, staggered sleep across a group wasn't a flaw. It was a survival strategy. If everyone's waking window happened at a slightly different point in the night, there was almost always somebody at least partially alert. A rotating, informal watch system built directly into human biology, with nobody having to be assigned the job. Your 3am wakefulness might be an inherited watch shift. You just have no fire to tend and no threat to scan for. So, the alertness turns inward instead, and it finds your anxieties, because your brain still needs something to be alert about. Sleep researcher Charles Czeisler has spent decades studying the circadian system, the internal clock that governs when your body wants to be asleep and awake. His work helped reveal just how sensitive that clock is to light and how catastrophically modern lighting disrupts it. A single bright screen an hour before bed can delay your body's release of melatonin enough to shift your entire internal night. Multiply that by decades of nightly screen exposure, and you get a species that has quietly rewritten its own biological programming in the span of a few generations. Ancient humans didn't have that problem. Their darkness was actually dark. Their transition into night was gradual, dimming with the fire, not snapping off with a switch. Their brains received a clean, consistent signal every single evening. Get sleepy now, and later, in the natural gap of the night, wake gently, stay briefly alert, then drift back down. You don't get that signal anymore. Instead, you get inconsistency. Bright light some nights, total darkness others, screens at every hour, alarms that yank you out of a sleep cycle mid-swing. Your body is still trying to run ancient software on modern hardware that was never designed to receive input like this. So the next time you wake at 3 a.m. and your mind starts racing, try reframing it. You are not failing at sleep. You are not broken. You are, in a very real sense, doing something your species has done for hundreds of thousands of years, waking in darkness, lying still, letting the mind wander through that strange liminal space between dreaming and thinking. The difference is that your ancestors had a fire to watch, a partner to whisper to, a task tied to the moment. You just have silence and a phone. What you do with that gap matters more than the fact that it exists at all. Try not filling it with a screen. Try letting your mind actually wander the way it evolved to. Some of history's biggest ideas were said to arrive in exactly this kind of half-awake state, when the analytical mind loosens its grip and something else takes over. It's 3 a.m. again. You're staring at the ceiling. But maybe now it feels less like something is wrong with you and more like something ancient is simply doing what it has always done.